that last time that we learned, he discussed, it says there's 30 days by a behema duck, and I think what was it, 3 months by behema.
No, but
one was 30 days and one was 50 days. 50 days. And
yeah.
One was a pasuk from Bechor Adam, which was 30 days. And one was a pasuk by Bikurim, which was 50 days.
Mm-hmm.
And he asked the kasha over there, by 30 days we said the Pajit Abed is on the 31st. And by Bikurim, Bechora, it's the 51st.
Right.
It's the 50th, because you can bring Bikurim on Shuas.
Right.
So that's only 50 days.
Right.
And yet the Mishnah says 30 and 50, and it's halachik to say one place it meant the 31st and one place it meant the 50th. Right. So then he went into the question that could be you don't bring Bikurim on Atzeres itself, even though it's called Chagah Bikurim, and one of the Shadim Chagah Bikurim is Zman Bikurim, but maybe you can't bring Bikurim on Shuas itself, and then you bring it on the 51st day.
Right.
And why don't you bring Bikurim on the 50th day? Because he says when you bring Bikurim, you bring a korban with it, a korban shlamim, and it could be, it can't be makriv that korban on Yantif. So he said that's a possibility, but he said that that's not true. He said you could bring that korban. He holds you could bring that korban shlamim, and some people said that you can't, but he himself held that you could bring that korban shlamim on Yantif, so you could have Bikurim on the 50th day.
Right.
So he said there was a possibility that sometimes the 50th day could be Shabbos, and for sure you can't bring that korban on Shabbos. So in that case it would be the 51st day. So that's why they always say the 51st day to cover that case. Also, so it's really the 31st day and the 51st day. And then he said, and some people say that even when it's Yeshuas, when she holds, you can bring the korban shlamim, but he brought some kind of brisa that said he used to bring birds for olos.
Right.
He said that for sure you can't be makriv and shuas, but he said that's tam as a minig or a drabanan or something, but he said that has nothing to do with what we're talking about. So we're talking about bikurim the raisa, and that'll be totally if you could bring this korban shlamim on shuas or not, and he holds you could because he holds it's part of shlamim is a type of simcha. You say that it's a simcha with shlamim. And some people said, no, this is a shlamim of simcha of bikurim, and you can't do that. But anyway, that was the shallow. That's the last thing I remember on the 50th and 51st. So I have to find where that is. So I think we were in that thing of that. I think we should start. By me, it's probably you have the same OCS as being in Australia. Probably we should start from Zion. I think we did start to Zion, but I don't think we're in the middle of it.
So mitzvah Yud
Yeah. Yeah. I think we did the first paragraph, but we're in the middle, so let's go over it, okay?
Okay, and you want to mention that custom sofer.
What?
You want to mention the custom sofer about...
Oh, if I speak up now, they'll hear?
Yeah.
Okay. I'd like to make a correction on a mistake we made last time we learned. We said over a Chassam Sofer that said that if you put an animal in the kippah and it's an animal that you were mechuyev to give mazonas to, so then you're over Tzar Balei Chayim. And if it's an animal that you weren't mechuyev to give mazonas to, you're not over Tzar Balei Chayim.
Right.
And we didn't know the explanation, and I guess that the explanation was he only holds that there's a din of Tzar Balei Chayim where you're in charge of it and you're in control of it and it's under your control. And that's why if you're mechuyev to give mazonos, there is Tzar Balei Chayim. And if you're not in control, it's not Tzar Balei Chayim. And I said it would come out that according to that Chassam Sofer, there's no Tzar Balei Chayim by something which is hefker. And it struck me as very, very strange. I never heard of such a thing. As a matter of fact, we've said that we have proofs that there is Tzar Balei Chayim by something of hefker. So Rabbi Hech showed me that he looked up the Chassam Sofer, and even though it's true that Chassam Sofer makes that chilik, but with a whole different explanation. His explanation was that if that he certainly would hold up by animal hefker, you can't. There's an issue of Tzar Balei Chayim, but what he meant was like this: that if it's an animal that you have to give mazonos to, so you're responsible to get it mazonos. So the very fact that you put it in the kippah, you're being over Tzar Balei Chayim because you're not going to be able to give him mazonos, and you're responsible to give him mazonos. So that's called Tzar Balei Chayim. But if it's an animal that you're not obligated to give him mazonos, so the very act of just locking him in the kippah, that itself is not the Tzar Balei Chayim. The Tzar Balei Chayim comes later. And all you're doing is the act of putting him in the keeping. You have no responsibility to him. You're not mechuyev to give him mizono. So that's not an act of sar balachayim, even though it turns out later that the animal's going to suffer and is going to have a lot of sar, but that's not your act. That's the way that I think the Chassam Sofer said it. And that's what I was shown, so there's nothing to do with hefker or not. It's a whole different explanation. And I really don't understand the chilik very well, because if you know that you're locking it up in the keep, even though the act of locking is not an act of sar balachayim, right? At the time of your act, it's not sar, but you know it's going to lead to it for sure. So I don't understand why that would be okay, but that's what the Chassam Sofer says. So we're just correcting that that the Rambam. When I heard the Chassam Sofer, I thought it was a different if it's hefker or not, but that's not what he meant. And certainly he would hold the sar balachayim by hefker. And this is an altogether different approach. And I'm leaving it with everyone else how to understand it, because I really don't understand it very well. Okay.
So it's interesting. I saw something today, because I learned this previous mitzvah before, where the Minchas Chinuch makes a distinction in Esed Docholosasa. He's talking about matzah. Right. So he makes a distinction of saying Esed Docholosasa and so forth. He talks about the mitzvah Hennes, about the question of whether a mitzvah is not a Hennes and whether a mitzvah is not for Hana. So he says the actual eating. So you see, the actual eating of the matzah would be, because of Esed Docholosasa, you can actually eat them. You can argue you can eat the matzah because of Esed Docholosasa. But he says, but after you ate it, the fact that you feel full, right, that becomes a problem, because you're getting hana after the fact from eating. The
mitzvah you did before.
But in other words, the result of the mitzvah, even though you're going to eat it, because the result of the mitzvah is considered hana, and that's the avera, that's the problem. In other words, the actual eating is and so forth. But the subsequent fullness, you can't tell it that it's mitzvah l'hennesitzu because it's no longer the mitzvah. It's just the result of the mitzvah. And then I just find that strange, because it's the necessary result of the mitzvah. The reason I thought of that is because it's the same thing with the keeper. It's the necessary result of locking away the animal is it's going to be hungry. I mean, the fact is that he's making, he seems to be making that hilik.
Yeah, but he's saying it's not the avera of sar balachayim.
Right, but the fact is but I'm comparing it to Minchas Chinuch, saying that you can't taina that feeling full afterwards. You can't taina that mitzvah love the hennesitzu, because that's not the mitzvah, even though it's a direct result of the mitzvah of eating. It's a similar type of
Yeah, but it's also not similar.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do this.
Okay, I just.
Osayim. The name mitzvah lechol habachor toch shnaso. There's a mitzvah's essay to eat the bechor during the first year of the bechor. Bein tam, bein balmum, whether it's a tam or a balmum. The tam you have to bring as a korban, and the kohen eats the korban. It's a korban shlomi, or he gives it to his family. And by a balmum, he doesn't bring it as a korban, obviously, it's a balmum, but he shechs it and he eats it. Shenemer b'Torah, where does this mitzvah's essay come from? Because it says in the Torah, Lifnei Hashem l'kachal tochlanu shana b'shana, came l'hura b'shas b'choros, perek ad kama, daf chovav and beis, Rambam Khan, perek aleph halacha ches, ma'ayin lecha mishnah, and we weren't ma'ayin lecha mishnah. V'imnola lo mum toch shana, so let's say you had a bechor, and which was full of healthy bechor, but then it got a mum within the first year. Eina rashoy lahashos yoser mishana. Still, you have to eat it within the first year from the time. I think we said from the 8th day, not from the first day, but from the 8th day when it was right to be a bechor. Achim nolad. So therefore, the first year still applies. Achim nolad mum achrashana. If for some reason you kept it more than the first year, like Bisman Azeh, that you had hayatzarach lam tinach, when you weren't allowed to eat it before it was a tam, and you had to wait till more than a year. You're not allowed to do anything. You don't put it in the kippah. We said this morning said you wait till it gets a moon. So you were waiting, and then it did get a moon. He called makom noslo acher hashana biyom leidas hamum od shloshim yom. So even though it's a balmum now and it's past the first year, and the chori means there's no more Indian to eat it, you passed the first year. So he still says you don't eat it right away. You give it another 30 days. So we said that was a takana d'Rabbanan, because sometimes you might check it and you won't find the coin right away and it'll spoil. So therefore they said to give them to wait 30 days, and I guess I'm not sure, maybe the idea was within 30 days you'll find the coin for sure or something. But there was, whatever the understanding of Shabbos Aveda, there was a takana d'Rabbanan to give the guy 30 days. Mavur b'shas sham halacha ches chav ches amar aleph. V'ayin shem Rashi divrei masku meinu nir midvarav the dafkim b'bechor hu eitzel Yisrael. That this takana was only if the Jewish person still has the bechor, and that's when they made this takana of Shabbos Aveda. They has 30 days, because he obviously he's not going to eat it. He has to give it to the kohen. So we were afraid that he was going to shecht it, and that he'll give it to kohen after it spoils, because meat will spoil. So there was an onion of Shabbos Aveda, they're making sure the kohen gets the bechor that they could eat. Who eats the kohen? But if you already gave it to the kohen, then the din is Einos Nizman Klal. There's no Indian of Shabbos Aveda anymore. The Kohen got it, so the Kohen has to shecht it and eat it then. Right? There's no 30 days. About Tosas on the Yamaska, but the Gamla Kohen Nosim Shloshim Yom B'Yom Shelo Hamun. That this takana of 30 days applies to when it's by the Kohen also. We're not sure why. Maybe it was a low plug, but you have to look at the Tosas. The Im Nolad Mum. So that's what they got the Mum after the year. So there's a takana of 30 days. It's machlokas if the takana was only by Israel or even was by the Kohen. The im nolad mum testa of yom kodem tashlim hashana, but it got the mum, let's say 15 days before the first year was over. So noslim lo lachar hashana rak testa of yom. So you have the 15 days left of that year, and plus another 15 days of the next year. So you still give it 30 days from the moon. Haklal. The shloshim yom is miyom hamumas. The 30 days is always counted from the day the moon came.
And after the 30 days, you have to
make sure you eat it. You got a moon, you have to eat it.
Yeah, but if it's not to the kohen, but you
have to give it to the kohen. You have to eat it.
Yeah, but if you can't find the kohen,
what?
You don't have a kohen.
I mean, what do you do anytime, even within the first year, if you don't have a kohen? What do you do? I mean, you have no choice. But you're an honest, I guess. But if you can eat it, you have to eat it. What do you do when there's a mitzvah if you don't find a coin? It's just you're honest.
So you wait 30 days and then you
make sure within those 30 days you give it to the coin. You're not going to shecht it if it's going to spoil if you don't have a coin.
Yeah, but after the 30 days,
you make sure the coin gets it and he eats it.
It could be any coin.
Yeah, why not? Any coin.
Right.
Medivi Ramam Khan Perik Aleph. Halacha test near a gamkein kedivyatos, that this 30 days business after it gets a moon is whether it's by the Israel or even if it's by the Kohen. Shlochilak beinim hu eitzel Kohen. He says there's 30 days when it gets a moon. It doesn't say there's a difference if it's by the Israel. Like Rashi learned, it's only when it's by the Israel. It's onion of Hashavas Aveda. So maybe we don't know how Tosas learns this Hashavas Aveda. Maybe he has a whole difference, or maybe he just says they made a low plug. V'chein b'shulchan aruch l'radei siman shin vav sif ches ein mivur achilek. That there's a difference between if it's by the Israel, and that's when it's 30 days, but by the Kohen is not even 30 days, the way Rashi learns Hashavas Aveda. And he says from Tosas, who says Beferish, this 30 days is even if it gets the moon by the Kohen. He says the Ram also says if it gets the moon, you have 30 days, and it doesn't make a difference if it's by the Kohen or by the Israel. So it's mashma the Rambam holds like, and Shulchan Aruch holds like Tosas, no matter where it's by, from the moon, you have 30 days. This mitzvah that he said before, where he has a pasuk, bein tamu bein bamum, he mitzvahs eslim in a Torah. He says that's the right to the pasuk. Shana b'shana is the right to the pasuk. I am the sugya kan chavav mebeis, who Rosh Hashanah daf vav mebeis, sugya about acher that you have within the year. It seems to be that there are some shittas that hold that the mitzvah deraisa is only by a tam and not by a balmum, but he says in Marid al-Ghazi proves in Choros that this din is shana b'shana, that it has to be eaten within a year, is min deraisa even by a balmum. No, he says hisig al lavushim mishin vav sif zayin v'atat sham sif kan vav shemavur v'deren, that they hold the einu el mishum takala gabe balmum. They hold this whole ending of eating at the first year is a pasuk in the Torah, but that pasuk is only by a tam. And by a balmum, there is no such pasuk. And the Stam, they were afraid that because by a balmum, you're allowed to eat it, but you're not allowed to do gizim of avoda. They didn't want a person to keep it around because he might eat it himself or he might use giz of avoda. So they made a din to make sure it's eaten within the first year, which is only the Rabbanan. That's what the Lavush and the Taz says. And Marid al-Ghazi says they're wrong. He holds the mitzvah saseh deraisa is even by a balmum that it has to be eaten in the first year. It's not mishum a takola that we want him to get rid of it quick. Ayin shama masha hiksha. So then he asks the question: the im balmum gamkein deraisa. According to his shita, the Marid al-Ghazi shita, that a balmum is also deraisa. It has to be eaten in the first year. So how could you say they made a takana that to get the mum after the year because of the rabbanon of Hashavas Aveda, right? He says Hashavas Aveda is an Indian of the mammon to save the guy's money that the meat doesn't spoil and the Kohen won't be able to use it. He says, "Hello, essay the mammon ain't a nitcha darim Torah." If there's a question of mammonus, he says here's a mitzvah deraisa that has to be eaten. So how could the Rabbanon, because of an Indian of Mammon, make a takana that they don't have to eat it and they give you 30 days? How could they do that? I am mislugid above a mitzvah laman amalaf, that where the Gemara says that for Hashavas Aveda you're not over an Isser, because for Mammon you don't do an Isser deraisa. Uva MS, he says, so the kasha he's asking from the case of look at a mum after the year, he says the MS im nola lo mum achra shana. He said, then you're not doing it. If you give 30 years, you're not going against the essay. But why not? Because kivin she'avra lav shana, if the year passed by already and you didn't eat it then, so ain't over owed. And the essay, there's no more essay unless you keep it another year. So if they give you 30 days, they're not telling you to be over the essay, because after it gets the mum, you still have another year according to the Torah, right? Because the first year passed already. So you're not dealing with doing an Avera deraisa when they give you 30 days.
So the fact is, if you develop a moon after the year, the 30-day thing actually becomes a chumrah rather than a kula. In other words, it's very interesting in the sense that way, if you develop the moon developed after the year.
Right.
So
according to the Torah, you have another year.
Right. So why would it show?
Because that shows Aveda, because they want you to, it'll spoil, you'll shakt and you won't give it. There was a whole problem over there, which is, I don't remember exactly.
You're really concerned about his mom, and you should give him the whole year to look for the coin.
Yeah, but the guy is not going to want to keep it around and take care of it. So I guess so you have to really look up to the Gemara. It speaks a lot clearly. But he says, but it's not a question of you're being over an essay.
Right.
And how does he know that there's an essay every year? Because he says, let's finish the line. He says this rule that he just said, that every year you have a year every time.
Right.
Right. In the first year you were over the essay, and then you have gets a mum, you have another year. Minotaura. He says that the Balamor says clearly. Could be other people argue, but he says that's the Balamor, so that's what he's accepting. So he says that's not a problem. How do they give 30 days if the moon came after? Because they're not going against the Raisa.
Right.
But he says, but he still asks a question. If it got a moon 15 days before the year was over, it says we give 30 days from the time of that moon. So then, according to this, there is a mitzvah deraisa to eat it within you have 15 days to do the mitzvah deraisa, and they're giving you 30 days, which is an extra 15 days. So because of Mammon, because of Hashavas Aveda, so how could they tell you to, because of Hashavas Aveda, to be over that mitzvah deraisa of eating it? Lama nosim lo o test v'yom b'shana shniyah. He says, we'll give him 15 days till the year is over to eat it within those 15 days. Well, how do you give him another 15 days to make it 30 after that? Who over the essay there? You're being over an essay. So how could the Rabbanan, because of Mammon, tell you to be over An essay. Okay, good. I'm sorry I disrupted you. What were you going to say before?
No, I just...
Okay, the Ayin Sham Maridal Gazi. Shehevim Raya Milakam and Daf Lam and Aleph on the base. And I don't know this case. Gabi Meiser Behema, Balmum. If you have a Meiser Behema that became a Balmum, the Aino Nimkor Shachat. You could sell it, but you're not allowed to sell it after it was geschachten. Masame, he rak iser the rabbanan b'meiser shel yisomim. What does it say? Because
Umachmas.
Oh, umachmas. This iser that you're not allowed to sell it shachat is only this rabbanan b'meiser shel yisomim lo gozer chazal. So if it was a meiser of yisomim, they didn't make this gezerah that you're not allowed to sell it shachat. The nimkar b'shel yisomim mishum hashabas avedas, so the yisomim, I guess, shouldn't lose money. So you're allowed to do this drabanan in this case. Alma, so the Gemara says clearly that the reason you're allowed to do it is since it's only an isser drabanan to sell it shachat, so they allowed you to do the isser drabanan. Alma derak mishum dahavi din drabanan mutter mishum hashavas aveda. So they only allowed you to sell it, even though midrabanan you're not allowed to sell it, but since it's only the rabbanan, so by the case of yisomim also shavas aveda, they allowed you to do it. But if the Isser would be a deraisa, like in our case, by Bechor, where we got the moon 15 days before the year was over, well, see, from that Gemara, the Gemara says clearly they only allowed it, because they allowed you to do an Isser Rabbanan. Maybe B'Shem Ham-Iri, B'Baba Kama, Sugit Kachim Kali, Shekasav, that said Beferish, whatever the case was over there, the Ihavi deraisa, that if we're dealing with an issue deraisa, after Hashavas Aveda, he mitzvahs essay, the Dochilos essay, even though it's an essay and we say Dochilos, and we come Israel Nitchum Itnei Mammon, but we don't say that by this essay because you're not allowed to do an essay for a Mammon where it's a question of Isra, K'mavur B'Shas and Bava Mitzvah. And now, Im Kenkan, so that's why he's just using that Miri to say Beferish, but even though Hashavas Aveda is an essay, but it's a Mishul Mammon, you can't be over an Isra Mishul Mammon to do you can't be over an Isra Deraisa because of this Inyan of Hashavas Aveda of Mammon. Im Ken Kivin Dahavi Min Torah, so since this mitzvah essay is Min Torah, so Eich Litke Isra Ibnei Mammon. So he's going l'chorad on the shittas that if it's a balmum, it's a deraisa. But that was the Maridal Gazi shita. He's only asking on his own shita that balmum is an issa deraisa. If you hold the only a tam is an issa deraisa, not a balmum, there's no problem. But the Maridal Gazi is asking on his own shita that he's proven that even by a mum is an issa deraisa, not like the lush and the taz, and therefore he says he doesn't understand. If it's 15 days before this over, you still have didn't chiv deraisa to eat it before the year is over. So how could they stretch it another 15 days?
And the argument, just trying to figure this out because the argument of Shevel Tasa.
Well, maybe that's going to be in there. I think that's what it's going to go into because the Yesh Kavol Yachachami to tell you.
Right. I mean, the fact he's talking over here, essay being Nochalos and so forth. I can understand saying that an essay in Dvar Mammon is not Nochalos, but that's already working in the mechanics of the deraisa.
Right.
But here you have the power of Shevel Tasa.
That's what I think he's going to go into.
Okay.
Well, the Amos, he says, Bakal Yesh L'chalik. So that's L'chor, the Maridal Gazi's question. He doesn't answer it. And he proved that from the case of Meiser over there, Meiser Behema, you're allowed to be over, and this is the Rabbanan for Meiser, for Hashavas Aveda. So how could you be over, but not an Isra Deraisa? In our case, you're being over an Isra Deraisa. Well, the Amos, he says, Bakal Yesh L'chalik. He make a simple chiluk. The Hasan hetero or hitru, they were matra. Bekum ba'asei limkor. So by the case of Meiser Behema, there was an Isser to sell it. Right? For some reason, there was an Isser to sell it, Kashachtan. So they said, well, since that Isser is Rabbanan, they were Mekel because of Hashavas Leveda by Misomim. So, Lo Yuchlu Chazal Lak or Davar Bekum Basei, if it would be an Isser, right, Mishum Hashavas Leveda. So therefore, they were said, but that Isser Bechir over there was only the Rabbanan, so they were able to do it. This is your teretz. Right. Avokanhu b'shevi al tasa. But here the case is, they're being you have to eat it, and they're telling you not. You don't have to eat it you have to eat it within the next 15 days, and they're telling you don't have to. So they're doing it b'shevi al tasa. Avokanhu b'shevi al tasa. B'shevi al tasa yochlu chazal lakor. They could. Yesh koch b'yachachayim lakar davar min Torah b'shei b'al taskim. Uvur b'arichas b'yavamas perak isha rabbit tzadik amanalef.
It's interesting because when he first started talking about this, I thought of Shev al Tasa, and I thought he must be saying that the Ramban won't be goyzer b'Shev al Tasa.
Maybe he's going to end up saying that later, but right now he's saying, I understand.
But then when he starts talking the other way, then I sit there and say, well, wait a second. Okay, so good.
But he says it's cow. He says it's not a lumdish thing. He says it's an easy approach. I don't know why did the Marital Gazi think of that then.
Right, like why?
That's what maybe he's going to say. I don't know myself. Gam divri ha'meiri tzarachian. He says, and when he quoted a Miri that said over there that he have a deraisa, even though Hashavas Avedas Mitzvah, you can't be over a moment for a deraisa. He says, I don't know what the case was over there. He says, the Miri is fair. The Mashach Zeh HaEsei Da Hashavas Avedu Hu Esi L'Ish Acher L'Hatzol HaBalim Imamonam. We have to know the case of the Miri. The Miri case was that one person had the Hashavas Aveda, and the Avera was on the other person. So he says Hashavas Aveda is in Docha. Anyway, I don't know the case. So Khan, the Nipsad Eitzel Habalim, it's by the person who has it, let's say the Yisrael, the Me'enim Rashoim Al Pi Torah, Ma essay Shaykh. So I'm not following what the case is. He's saying, because I don't know what the case of the Miri was. Here he's saying the Chacham have a koach like a term in the Sheva al Tasa. He says the Miri's case is different.
But he doesn't say what the case is about.
Let's just finish up. Maybe we can get up in the next lines. But emes abshat, the chazal mipnei hefsin mammon akru. It's like he's saying because yesh kav yacham la'akra the mitzvah, because of this hefsid moment of hashavas aveda. Im came vadei v'kum v'asei the enim yacham la'akra. Even there's a siyag, a feeling mishum siyag. He says because you're not going to be able to be okr mishum hefsid mammon. So therefore, anytime there's a deraisa, you have to say that they could only do with Shevel Tasa and not become Vasei. So that's those cases of the Miri, whatever was talking about was a Kum Vasei, or the case of Meiser Behema was talking about a Kum Vasei, and if it would be a Deraisa, they wouldn't have the Koach. They don't even have the Koach Mishum Asiyag, they certainly don't have a Koach Mishum Hefsed Mammon. However, the Shevel Tasa, Yacholin Lakor, Gam Mishum Hefsed Mammon.
Right.
Okay, so therefore, we don't know the exact case of the Miri. We don't know what the cases are generally, but he's saying that the case of the Miri was also a case of a kum vasei. So the Miri says, for Hefsed Mammon, you weren't allowed to do it. You don't say Esidocha Losas. But, and that was also the case of Meiser Behema. They weren't so you could do it because over there to make the Mechir because it was the Rabbana, but if it would have been a Deraisa, you can't do it. But over here, they're telling you stamazai, you have to eat it within the first year, and when by telling you they're giving you an extra 15 days, they're telling you don't have to eat it within the first year. That's a Shev Yal Tasa. So he's making a chiluk that Mishum Hefsed Mammon, you can't do a kumbasei, but they have a koach of Lakor b'Shev Yal Tasa. Ach, he says, even though it's a pashat chiluk, he says Ach Davar Zeh, he says it's not so pashat. Tzarchi and Rav. The brachos about Matzia, that's the whole sugya of this moment of the Einkam the Kombo. I don't want to go into it. In other words, he's saying my chiluk of Hefsed Mammon, there's a chiluk that Kumbal Seva Shevel Tas is not so pashut. You learn the Gemaras there. Ukvar Herachti Le'el, which I don't remember. We did this together. That's the name. Right? Ta'af Mitzvah Overes Ein Sarach Levazbeis Arbe. So this has nothing to do with what we're talking about. He said there's a din that you only have to spend a chomesh on a mitzvah. And he says even if it's a mitzvah veris, you're not going to be able to do it. You still only have to spend a chomesh. That I remember learning. I don't remember learning it here, but I remember the klal is that for a mitzvah you don't have to spend more than a chomesh, even if it's a mitzvah overis.
Right. Right. It's talking about shvitas of Esach.
Okay.
Right. Exactly.
The ayin umikol shekain the chazal yecholin laker mitzvahs essay to have b'shei b'altasa. It says malach, you don't have to spend more than a chumash to do a mitzvah essay. So for sure they could do lima okeret with a shevi al tasa for a good reason. V'ayin a mitzvah de le'el sharachti bin yanim ewa. He says he was marach in mitzvah hey. But he's saying over here now that this reason that for moment that you're not, there's halachik in the Shevi Al-Tas that comes out say, he says it's not so pasha. You have to learn well the sugya in brachos and the sugya in mitzvah, and what he said before in mitzvah say, which I forgot.
But he does say the big thing, even in the essay Docha Losa, his thing is it's not Docha, if the essay is because of mammon,
it's not Docha.
It's not Docha.
That's the Gemara by Baal Shavas Aveda. You don't say Docha.
No sense.
That was the Gemara, but he's being mechanic between Shevi Al-Tas and Kumba.
Well, that's why the Kohen, why the Kohen can't go into
the basic course.
Right. So that's exactly it. You should say Essay Docha Losa. So you say that's the underlying theory here.
That was one of the more fruits of there. One said it was a loss of the essay, then the Gemara says, one third more says, Isri Mono, Mammon Yisr Lo, Bechina. You don't do a Shavas Aveda in front of an essay. Okay, but he says if it's a Shevi Al-Tasa, Yesh Koch B'Yad Chachon, by regular mitzvah essay, so they could tell you Shevi Al-Tasa. So it could be then, but you have to see the Gemara Sushos, all the cases that have said. But it doesn't, even if you find cases where they didn't do it, but there could be cases where they would do it. It's told that the Chachamim were ochre or not. It's not automatically ochre, so you have to know.
Right. It's just interesting because when you were first reading this, it seemed to me that he was basically using this concept to explain that why Chazal would not be ochre something even with a Shev Al-Tasik as a moment.
And that's what he seems to be Ramas over here, because after he said the Chilik, he says, you still have to be Mayan in the Sugya. It's not such a Pasha.
Right, so it seems to be that he's going back and forth of whether...
I don't know if he's going back whether they can or whether they would or wouldn't. To me, it's more much he's going back and forth whether they can.
Right.
And could be he's going...
Once you have a concept that the essay is not Dechalosis, in the case of Mammon, you can start questioning whether it would be applicable to the concept of Shev Al-Tasa.
Yeah.
Interesting. It seems to me that he must have been thinking about this as well, because otherwise, why? It's such like he opens up his number call. Yeah. I'm sitting there and saying,
but it's not so cow because Meridal Gazi didn't hear it so push.
Right. So it seems to me there must be something
not so
here.
Cow. So that's what he says. He says Sarathi and Rav.
Right.
So you have to really go through those sugyas, and he said you have to go through what he said before.
Yeah.
Okay. V'hinei b'chor tam the aser lahashal shana. So there's no heter by time you can't for sure. There's a mitzvah essay the rights l'kuliyamla. You can't hold it back a year. Chutz masha overall essay the shana b'shana. This is an essay to eat it within the year. Od overall bal tacher. But if you put it off, there's a lav of bal tacher. Ayin b'rosh shana. U'lashitas harambam lahalacha lo mishkachas shana below regalim. That in order to be over Baal Tachar, you have to have a year, but you have to be over 3 regalim. Right. So I guess he holds you don't need Considran, because one man holds you need Considran, so then Shana doesn't necessarily mean a Shana. You have to start with Pesach, what happened right after, right?
Right.
The low bean regalim, he says beferish, the low bean regalim Considran according to Ram, as a pasuk you need 3 regalim, you just need 3 regalim. The Gam Sarach Shana Tamima. And since the Torah says the Ferris Shana, you need a complete Shana. The Imnis Abra, and if it's every year where you have 13 months, Nisabra low. So then there's no Baal Tachar until after the 13 months. The
this interestingly about Tachar, you'd be over about Tachar once you're over Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot.
But not if the Torah says Shana B'Shana.
So he's extending. He's saying this affects the union of Baal Tachar also. No, it's only after the full year you're over Baal Tachar.
I don't think he means that. I thought he meant that the Baal Tachar starts after the first year. There's a whole big shaila that the Bechlokas Rishonim. I think he's going with the Rishonim that the Baal Tachar starts after your Ma'achar, your Chiyav, and then you're over Baal Tachar after 3 regalim.
Oh. It
could be your way, but I think that's totally not focusing on him how to learn about Tachar.
Because really you should do this, and then Baal Tachar is...
If you delay it more than the time you're due. Pashup Shot is if you have, the Torah gives you a year, so Baal Tachar doesn't fall in until that year.
And then he's still applying to Shana B'Shana. He's still saying it's still a full year because it extends to the second year. If you have the animal alive in the first year, you're over. If you leave the animal alive for 2 years, you'll be over the Avera twice, right? According to what he said before about.
I don't know what he means. I'm not sure.
Because after you finish the year.
I think he just means after you finish the year, and the year, if the case of it was an Ibrior, would be 13 months, and then maybe the Baal Tachar kicks in.
And that's only 3 regalim?
What? Yeah, the way I understand it, that would only be 3 regalim.
And that's not the year?
Yeah.
That's only 3 regalim.
That's what I think he means, but I'm not sure.
He said, Od over. He says, He says, Od over. In other
words, then you have to deal with Baal Tachar. It could be. Originally, I read it your way. So that means you were over Baal Tachar. But I think now that that's what it means. It means there's another problem besides the essay. There's another of Baal Tachar.
Well, why couldn't it be Regalim Sidra? If he's talking about Baal Tachar after you're over the year,
it matters when the year ended.
So then you're not over Baal Tachar until it's Considron, but why does it have to be within the year? Whereas the Baal Tachar doesn't have to be limited by the year then. So it is. So
what he's saying, you don't need Considron. According to the Rambam, you don't need Considron.
Yeah, but even if it's Considron, if Baal Tachar is a totally independent, if it's talking about
after the year was over, so it matters when was the year over?
Yeah, but let's say the year is over
after Pesach.
After Pesach, so you won't be over Baal Tachar until. The following, till a year and a half.
Yeah.
But it's not really tied to the Shana issue. It's just telling you that after the Shana you got to do a Baal Tachar.
To me, that's why it's more mashma. You're saying you're over Baal Tachar in the first year.
Or the thing he says about essay the Shana b'Shana is you're over. In other words, the idea is that if you leave this animal alive for 2 years, will you be over the Avera of Shana B'Shana twice? In other words, the first year you're over for 1 year, and then the second year you're over. And then Baal Tachar would apply to the second year.
I'm looking at the note on the bottom. The first he says that this is what he says the Rambam doesn't hold you need considering. Some Achronim argue that the Rambam holds they do need considering. Okay, then he said the Shlomo Shalom Kohen. Ubezebi Rabbeinu Bahalam Divrei HaRambam Shafilu Im Lo Hikri L'Chor Tok Shana V'Hutzrich L'Zeh Ba'Open Shelo Avru Gimel Regalim. So he's mashma. He's saying Klor going on the Gimel Regalim of the first year. Yesh Omrim Shadin B'Chor Kedin Kol HaKarbanos Ve'eno over Bo Babal Tachar Ela B'Gimel Regalim U'B'Shana Below Regalim over Rak Be'Essay U'Masha Kasa Ramam She'over B'Lav Lo Sa'achar Shana Haina Hecha De'Ikul Gimel Regalim. But if you didn't have the Gimel Regalim, you're not going to be over about Tachar. In other words, their shalas in the first year. Do you need Gimel Regalim? Do you say since the Torah said Shana B'Shana, you're over if you wait the whole year, even if you didn't have Gimel Regalim? Like if you need Gimel Regalim, it's considering you didn't have considering, or even if you don't need considering, but let's say you only had 2 Regalim left in the year, was born after the Pesach, you didn't have Gimel Regalim. You weren't Macher Gimel Regalim.
But it was born after Pesach. You wouldn't have the year till the following.
So the Ram says you're over in that year. So they say some people learn. So he's saying some Achronim understand that you're over about Tachar, even though you didn't have Gimel Regalim, because the Torah gave a time of Shana. As long as it let that year go, you're going to be over about Tachar.
How can the year without Regalim?
Because it was born. It was born. Let's say right after
Pesach. But then,
if you don't need considering, you're going to have 3 Regalim.
Right.
So let's see how he says it. Let's just look at the signs. He says, "Yeh sharm shadin b'chor bedin kor banas ve'ein over bo bal tacher gimel regalim v'shana below regalim over rak be'esay u'masha kasa ramim she'over belav la'acher shana hainu heichadika gimel regalim." But if there's not gimel regalim, so what would be the case? You don't have a gimel regalim in a shana. O kavanasa belav habo mechol esay the shana b'shana doesn't mean bal ta'acher. So you're asking, how do you have a case of a year without gimel regalim? So there's a note, but I can't see the small print over here. It says 80 something. He says it's totally in the machok, something mara between Tanoim, between the Acherim. He says, according to the Acherim, you could have a shana below regalim. So let's look up the Gemara, the Baltacher, what the Acherim hold. Where is that Gemara? It's probably in, it's either Rosh Hashanah or Dara. It's probably in Rosh Hashanah. Does he read where the Gemara is?
It doesn't read here. You see. Rosh Hashanah is definitely Ayin Aleph, is that it? Yeah.
There's no Ayin Aleph in Rosh Hashanah.
No, sorry, Amin Aleph. Dalit Amin Aleph.
I think I had a Rosh Hashanah today. Something else? Maybe it's still there because I never put it back.
Benefit learning in the library.
Yeah, that is a big benefit for me. But it's hot in here. It's not. First time it says you just need gimel regalim. Rabbi Shimon says you need gimel regalim sidron. Starting with Chaymatis. Then it says, okay. Now there's a sheetus of the Achirim, so I guess maybe that's on the base. It says the mayor holds you over about the Acher after one regel, and one person holds after two regels, and one says it's only Tali and Sukkos. I'm saying so many different sheets over here. I just want to find out because he quoted the Achirim on the bottom. So that's down, but it keeps on going.
Baba Mabes. Gamla Kacherem, Dein Ben Etzeres.
Baba Mabes, because I got the Hail. I went through the whole download and Hail Alpha and see it's, what did you say, it's Baba Mabes? Okay. Baba Mabes or Hail Mabes? Baba Mabes?
Baba Mabes.
Okay. It says, Kagon Sha'avra Olav Shana Below Regolim, you're over about Tacher. So what's the case of
Etzeres. Gam Kacherem, Dein Ben Etzeres Letzeres, or Dal Yami. It's a Bishlam Regom Loshana, it's easy. Loshana below Regom, Hekvish Kachtzway.
You could have lower golim, mandalesli considered. How do you have it? So where it says you could have a nashana beres that if you don't count the nashana beres, I guess. But then where it says it matters what the shana is, and then he says, upon your case, at Saras is pamim hey and pamim shisha and pamim shiva.
Right.
Shuas could be sometimes the 5th, 6th, or 7th.
Right.
Okay, Tashneim Malayim Chamisha Shneim Chasem Shiva, Echad Moli Vechad Chaser. So in other words, you can have a whole year of days before without Saras.
Right.
So therefore, you could have a shana without. If you need 3 regalim, you could have a shana without 3 regalim. Ain't been at Saras with Saras, ain't been Mishon Shana, Ela Dalad Yomim Bilvad.
Right.
Shana Uberes, Yechamisha Yomim. Okay. So you have a shana without.
You hear the answer to those questions. It's like, but whoever thinks of it not being.
The Gemara thought of it. This is okay. So let's go back to our thing because where's the time? I don't want last time we missed.
25. It's 25:02.
So we have time, but we'll just do this paragraph because last time we went right through and we missed.
Right, but it's much beneficial because there's a clock right there also.
Okay. So where were we held? 1 second. Okay, so let's go back to what you said, which I said was Chavchil, then I changed. But in other words, we're talking about Gimel we're going in the first year. But Yinei Bechor, start from the beginning. Bechor Tam Da Asr Lahashel Shana, Chutz Masha over Al Essay of Shana B'Shana, if you wait for a year. Ol over Al Baal Tach, Ryan Rosh Hashanah. That means of the 3 regalim that passed by in that year. Sheet is a Rambam Lahalacha Lo Mashkachas Shana below regalim. Because he doesn't need considered according to the Miltos. Miltolo bin regalim considering. The Gam Sarach Shana Tmima. Even this Arbra low, so he has the whole Shana. The Gam Kacherim, and he also holds like the Cherem, the Ein Ben Atzeres, Latzeres, Aladalad Yahim Ayin Sham. B'chol Yom B'Yom Ovrim Al Baal Ta'acher. Okay, so in other words, from the first day of...
Yes, after the year, you're over each day after the year, you're over Baal Ta'acher.
I'm a Yisham, who the essay Zu, Das Balamor, Daina over Ela B'chol Shana. But this essay of Shana B'Shana, you need a complete year. For every year you're going to be over. That's what we brought before. It's not just the first year, but every year is over. But you need a complete Shana. But as far as Baal Ta'acher, he's saying it's totally in the Shittas of what Baal Ta'acher is.
And that's only by the Tam. And you know he says even before Tam. Only by before Tam, because you have a fee of korban.
Because if there's a Baal Ta'acher by a korban, there's no Baal Ta'acher by a B'mumah, so it's only telling and eating.
Right.
He gave a B'shasham avoid the Cholakach and Shavim before, and he said Gamkein Le'inyan Ha essay. Wow, the Shah says this essay is of a year is not only by Bechor, or of a Ramam Perikadal Mimaisa Kabanas Halachi Gimel Kasa Sham Din de Baal Ta'acher Bergali. Lo Heavy Davar Zad over Gamkein Be'essay Mavel of Shana. According to the Shas, there's an essay by all korbanos. After Kivin the Ein Napkamin the Kolkach, Kiv the Lomash Kapsel Shana below Regalim. Im Kain Memela over Alav Gam Al essay the Vasav Vesa Sham. He didn't have to say it because it's understood. But he should have brought such a thing. I don't know. Ach Kam Perikal Vechodim is Alashana Bechor the Icher Bechor La'acher Shna Slapish the over below Maisa. Because he's talking about over below society, where below Maisa it's stuff I can't see so well. Over below society, he said, what Losa is he talking about? He's talking about the Fnaisa, because if you don't have Baal Ta'acher, it's only an essay. Baal Ta'acher, who Bergolim, the Mela over all of Gimel Bergolim, Al Karkach over the Lav. So what's the language of the Ram? The Ram says, Avar be'icher ha'be'or la'acher b'chor la'acher shnaso afal pi de avar below sasa, which is he's saying it's Baal Ta'acher, right? The l'fneisa because before shnaso la'acher shnaso you don't need for Baal Ta'acher. So what it was he said l'fneisa havirak essay.
And what's he talking about the essay? He's saying that the
he says, since the Achashna, so he says, you're over. He said, well, what can he be talking about? It can't be talking about an essay because he says a lot. But what is
he's saying overall essay the Shana B'Shana is he's saying that the idea that you have to be marked within the year is only an essay. Because Baltacher is a los essay. But is that what the mitzvah to eat it within a year is a mitzvah's essay. So letting it stand longer than a year, als bechor, is only a bittul essay.
With the Rambam?
Is that what he's saying? How does that work with his whole argument of Hashem Haveda and stuff like that?
I don't know what you mean. Rambam says, Perek Aleph Yochadin Zal Shana. Avar v'Ichir HaBechor La'achar Shnaso. Afal P, the over below essay. What is it? Even though you were over losa. So he says clearly that if you left the Bechor after the Shana, you were over a losa. Uvale, he missed me. He doesn't mean the essay of Shana B'Shana. Uvale Kavana Machmas Baal Ta'acher. He must mean because of Baal Ta'acher.
Right.
The Lefnei Zeh Havirak essay. That's what it means, Lefnei Zeh. Before the year, you're not over anything. And after Shnaso, you're over Losa, so why weren't you over? What does it mean with Shnezel Havirak essay?
Havirak essay.
Well, Tacher Habib Regolim, Lemela over all of Gimel Regolim, because the year went by, Al Korchach over a lot, so I don't know what it means. Okay, I'm going to have to look this up and see the language inside.